Hello, I'm Paul Briley, and you're listening to Off the Comma. On this podcast, we explore all facets of what it means to feel stuck in life. We talk with people just like us who have found themselves sitting on a comma and not knowing where to go next. We'll unpack the experience, where they felt stuck, what they experienced, and what they learned. My goal is to inspire you by seeing yourself in others and finding possibility for yourself. Let's get into this week's conversation. And we are back for a really exciting episode of the podcast, because this episode is a milestone. And if everything plays out the way I expect it to, as of the time of this recording, this is going to be our first episode in 2026. So, powerful story for a powerful new year. I think everybody that I have talked to and everybody that I have seen is wishing for a powerful new year in this crazy world we live in. And I just a little shameless plug. I mean, this podcast started in 2023. So, yes, that's right. So now we're rolling into and approaching our third year. May will be our third year of the podcast. So this is crazy. And that said, I'm going to stop talking about myself. I'm very honored because this week we have another storyteller to add to our community, and I'm very excited to get to know her, Kate Hendrickson. I'm going to let her introduce herself in just a moment. As with so many of my guests, this has turned into an opportunity for me to meet and learn about people through the telling of their story for the first time. And so Kate and I don't really have any history, but I'm going to get to learn a little bit more about her today, and then add her to our story of our community of storytellers. And very excited to see what I'm going to learn from what Kate has to share with us today. Kate, I'm going to hand it over to you now. Tell us, by way of introduction, why don't you start with how would you like to be known? And then, if there's anything else you would like for people to know about you, hobbies, work interests, and so forth.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Paul, and congratulations on 3 years. It's incredible. And so I'm
Thank you.
super excited to be here and kick off 2026. I would describe myself um, definitely family oriented. So I am a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, I'm a sister, I'm a cousin, I'm a mentor, I'm a mentee. I
Mm,
am definitely driven by relationships in my life and creating and making new relationships and bonds. I am Southern, so I
mm.
am proud. I'm proud of those roots. Everything from the cooking to the music to the culture. I enjoy being from the South. I would describe myself as ambitious.
Mm.
I would also say I'm pretty strategic around decision making and the way I live my life and the way I work with others. So I think that's a pretty good summary.
Well, and self-referencing a little bit, as a fellow Southerner, someone who grew up in the South, I should say. I no longer live in the South. I don't know if I get to claim it anymore, but by birthright, growing up in North Texas, I'm excited to hear, how that and these other descriptions, these other traits present themselves in your story. And funnily, what I was going to say is I'm really excited to see how your Southern roots show up in the way you tell your stories, because my experiences, and I think many of us, many folks can attribute or agree with that, is Southerners and their storytelling is always sure to be a hit, right? Entertaining.
We try.
Anything else,
Specifically,
Kate,
yeah,
that you
go
would
ahead.
like folks to know about you, in terms of hobbies or interests or family or work or any of the stuff?
I would say I'm in a point of life right now that I'm calling my midlife awakening.
Mm.
So I'm not in any kind of crisis. Things are great, but I'm a little bit more awakened to some things, focusing on some things that are either, for me or for my family in a different way than I have in the past. So I
Mhm.
am in this phase of life that I'm calling midlife awakening, and excited to share it with you.
It's powerful because, that particular term always tends to come with word crisis, but I love how, just the reframe is like things can present us with an opportunity to change or something new to happen or whatever, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a crisis.
Right, right. And it's exciting. And I think at this stage of my life, I'm in a wonderful spot that I've got some life experience behind me to make some cool choices and do some things. And at the same time, I have many years ahead of me that I can continue to do that. So
Mm.
it's a great place to be.
Love it. Well, let's get into your story because it sounds like so much of what you want people to know about you is going to present itself in your story. In just a moment, we'll get into the 5 questions that frame our structure here on the episode. One of the things I like to do with every guest before we get started, though, Kate, is as you think ahead to the next 35, 40 minutes or so of telling your story and sharing with us, what intention would you have for yourself today in the telling of your story?
That's a great question. A little bit of reflection of hopefully pride of how far I've come and in the last and I'm not afraid to give my age. So I'm 43 in the last 43
Mm,
years. I so I hope just kind of a little bit of my own reflection and joy and that journey. And at the same time, some reminders of maybe some things I could be, doing a little bit differently or some things a little bit more strategically. So I think it's really nice to reflect back and to think forward.
mm. It's I want to acknowledge you for that because just being able to kind of look at our age and our years as opportunities to reflect is really a gift for all of us. I'm 55 now, 56 coming in the new year. And,
Yeah,
on the one hand, we can get into the whole, oh my God, I'm scared of the number. But on the other hand, it's like, what does that say? Like that, those are the years, are the rings in our lives, or the
exactly.
marks on the wood, or, too many metaphors to count. But my
I went
intention,
out.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Kate.
The only thing I was going to add is, my entire life, you can't tell me with me sitting here, but I'm very short. So I'm about 5 feet
Mm,
tall. My entire life, everyone has thought I'm younger than I actually am. And for a while, it kind of bothered me. I'm okay with it now, but especially around my mid 30s, I would get a lot of comments like, oh, well, you look like you're 21, or you look like you can't,
mm.
have alcohol or this, whatever, whatever the jokes and the comments were. Um, but a little part of me was like, but I have a lot to show for myself. Like I've done a lot in my 35 years or 36 years and to feel like some of that was dismissed because I had a young look or I was small
Mm,
size, it kind of it was a little tough to get through. And now I'm at a place where I'm like, I'll tell everybody my age. I don't care. I don't care if you think I'm younger. I don't care if you think I'm older. I've kind of gotten past that a little bit. But it is interesting how age just changes your opinion on some things or your own opinion of yourself or how much it bothers you when other people, feel certain ways about you looking old or young or whatever it may
mm.
be. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's a I think what I've come to know in my life is that all people want to be seen and be heard and kind of be recognized and acknowledged. And I believe what I'm hearing from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that this ends up being one of those things that is a point of dismissal, and it can be a point of exclusion or a point of
Right.
diminishment, when other people use it against you, and then or when we use it against ourselves.
Right, right. And I feel like your birthday's kind of like your badge of honor, right? Like
Mm.
that of all the things that you've achieved in X amount of years, it is, something of pride and honor as you can age and grow and get older.
Mm, mhm. You shared with us your intention. My intention today is to create space for you to support you in your intention, and that in you sharing your story today, there will be people out there who will see a little bit of themselves in you and your story. They will feel a little bit more connected, a little bit less alone, and in the best of cases, maybe feel inspired or empowered to go out and do something they've been wanting to do.
I hope so. I love it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's jump into your story then. So, question one, Kate, is where in your life have you found yourself sitting on a comma?
So I think of I thought a lot about just like the whole concept of the show, and I really feel like our life is our story, and it's divided up into chapters, and which is divided up into sentences, and we hit a lot of commas over our lifetime.
Hmm.
Some we are kind of stuck on for a while, and that comma just sits there as we navigate what's next. And some were able to get past a little bit quicker and easier. Um, so the first one that I was reflecting back on, the first one was when I was in college. So we'll go back a little bit. I started out majoring in business. And my freshman year, I took a business class. And by the end of the first semester, I went, this is not for me.
Mm,
I don't want to study business for the next 4 years. I want to do something a little bit more exciting or a little bit more, and not that business isn't exciting because now I'm deeply involved in business and love it. But at that point in my life, I wanted something different. And so it was at the time when you're in college and when you were in college and you had like a physical book of classes to register for, like
mm,
the catalog of book. It wasn't on a
yeah.
computer. It was like actual catalog that looked like a phone book almost, right? And so we had the catalog of classes. And I remember this like it was yesterday. And I was just skimming through all of the classes in the book and trying to figure out like, what am I gonna do? I don't want to do business, but I had no idea. I didn't have
Mhm.
any real true direction of, what I wanted to be when I grew up and what I wanted to do next. And kind of I got stuck there for a while. And so as I'm going through this book and trying to figure it out and reading class after class that's offered to just say like, is something grabbing me? I came across the classes that were around journalism, um, television, film, the history of film, film production, film editing, radio, learning about radio. And I just thought, I'm like, this sounds cool. This sounds like something I'm really interested in. So I changed my major to mass communication and started moving in that direction. But the
Mhm.
interesting thing about that is you still kind of go, but am I making the right choice? Like you're still kind of sitting on that comma for a while in college, after college, right? And so um I really leaned into that the whole department. So I was a DJ on the radio station,
Mm.
and I worked at the TV station behind the scenes, and I got a great group of friends as in the department, and so we had to do like film projects, and I would act in theirs, and they would act in mine, and they would come help me edit something, or if I couldn't get something quite right, we would work together, and it was a very, very supportive group of people, and I fell in love with the whole process of storytelling. So
Mhm.
everything from writing journalism articles for newspaper or classes or, required assignments, um, to telling a story through film, to telling a story through the radio. It was just something that I was like, this is really cool. And so I don't even think I realized I got off of that comma though
Mm.
until I was already deeply involved and went, I'm loving this. So
Yeah.
and I think you're gonna, as you hear the more of my story and learn more about me, that's gonna be a theme where like I don't realize I'm off the comma until I'm separated from when I was on the comma. Like when that first initial conflict and struggle happened, um, you just kind of one step at a time start working yourself through it, and then when you can look back and go, oh man, I was really stuck, like
Mm.
that was really keeping me up at night.
Yeah. Well, what I think I'm hearing is really interesting, and I love it. Before we started recording, you and I were talking about different ways. Well, the different ways people bring their stories into the podcast, and then the different way people interpret and experience this common metaphor. And what I'm hearing from you is like, I'm stuck. I'm sitting on a comma. I've chosen a path with doubt and uncertainty. And then
Correct.
you correct me where I misreflect anything, but I get so immersed in taking steps in a direction that I'm not necessarily looking or measuring my progress. It becomes a realization once I've arrived someplace and can look back.
Exactly. You nailed it.
Mm.
Nailed it. Yes, that's
Mm.
exactly how I feel. And feel that that's typically when I come off a comma, it comes after some reflection and some time.
I'm curious, and we'll get to, the second, third, fourth, fifth questions here in a moment, but, um, you know, sometimes when people feel stuck, they're sitting on a comma and they're working towards getting off the comma. They're so eager, and by they I mean me. They're so eagerly pursuing some, destiny or destination or end state that they're so fixated on that they don't pay attention to the thing that they're doing in the moment or get clear on just the steps that they're taking and so forth. I don't know how to ask the question, but what I'm trying to understand or learn is what's that process like for you to realize you're stuck, pick a direction, and then just go, so much so that you don't realize you've gotten unstuck. What,
Mhm.
what are you feeling? What are you thinking? What are you doing? What's that like for Kate? Because that is the process of getting off the comma, it seems like, at least in this example.
Sure, sure. I think sometimes it's just being decisive and making a decision,
Hmm.
knowing that if I fail, it's okay. If I fail, I can course correct and change and make a different decision. But sometimes it's making that first choice or decision that's going to move me in one direction or another. Um, the next stage of my journey um, took me, this is a very fun few years to chat about.
Hmm.
But I got out of college, I graduated. A lot of my friends were still in college, and I decided I wasn't ready for a 9 to 5. I had just gotten out of a relationship, and I just was like, I just need to get out. Had gone to college about an hour from where I'm from, so while I was not living in my hometown, I was still just in that bubble. So I drove to Orlando and auditioned to be a friend of Mickey and Minnie. I'm just gonna
Mm.
leave that piece there, leave that there, and got the role. And so I moved to Orlando and performed and worked there for a while, and that was really fun too. But it was also I had come to a place, I graduated, I had achieved that goal, and then went, what's next? Even on my graduation cap, people decorate the top of their graduation cap. So when people are at the graduation, right, they can see the
Hmm.
top of the cap. On my cap, I had taped and gold tape, what's next? Question mark. Like I
Mm.
was just like, my friends are still doing the college thing. I don't want to do that anymore. I'm also not ready for a 9 to 5. I think, 21 years old and thought, what am I going to do? And so going back to what do I do when I'm on that comma, I made the first decision I'm just going to go audition and see what happens. I made that first decision and make that first step. And then I had to once I got it, I had to make another decision to go, now wait, am I going to really do this? Am I moving to
Mm.
Orlando? And am I really going to move that far away from my family? Is this something I really want to do? So you're constantly making decisions that ultimately end up where you end up getting to the place where you come off that comma. But I mean, I was all over the place. I thought there was a time where I thought, well, I'm just gonna apply for any job I can find in my hometown and live with my parents and go to what's comfortable, right? I mean, I had grown up in the
Hmm.
same city my entire life. I went to college and then, was back with my parents. And I just thought, I can just find something here. I can work here, and which is totally fine. But I was all over the place, and then looking at Orlando and looking
Hmm.
at Disney World and applying for things in other states and other cities and locally. And I mean, it was just, I felt like chaos, chaos,
Mm.
trying to figure out what was next. And I think making a decision was the first step to getting off the comma, and then continuing to make decisions along the way. I had
Mm.
also reached out. I had with a TV and film degree. My While I was in college, the movie Ray with about Ray Charles with Jamie Foxx was filming
Hmm.
in New Orleans, and I had volunteered with the casting company just to get experience, just to be on a movie set, just to be immersed in that world, and love that too. And I had reached out to them after graduation, and I was like, are you hiring? I mean, I was just all
Hmm.
over the place trying to figure out what was next.
I hear that, and what I'm hearing a lot of is you've said it, one decision at a time. And in the telling of the story now, even though you say I was all over the place, it sounds like pretty decisive to take one decision at a time. But I'm guessing, like most people, it wasn't that clean, it wasn't that neat. A lot of
It was
people are
not.
so caught up in the future or making the right decision, or, you know, is that going to be the final grand job? Say a
Right.
little bit more, and then we'll go to the second question here in a moment. Say a little bit more about what you mean when you say it felt like chaos or I was all over the place.
I think I second guessed a lot of things.
Mm.
Is this, and I was still at a point and very young where didn't quite realize that nothing is permanent yet. Like everything felt like such a
Mm.
huge major decision. And so that's why there was a lot of chaos in my head because it was keeping me up at night. And I was, so worried about failing. And well, what if this doesn't work? And what if what if I fail at this? Or what if I can't live by myself that far away from home? Or it was the what ifs that just continue to scroll through your head
Hmm.
in a very, unfortunately, negative way at that point in my life, at that age where it was like all the bad things that could happen were going to happen. And it was, and if things didn't work out, then, life was over. It's just everything was
Mm.
so dramatic and big. And so I think that's why it felt like chaos to me because it just felt so permanent in the moment. And spoiler alert, I was only there for 6 months and then did something else.
Mm.
So what I'm saying is I'm like, but all these little things is what has gotten me to a point where now I'm like, well, if I fail, I fail. I'm gonna, pick myself back up again and I can course correct and I can change. But it's taken all of those things to get me to this place.
Mm. Well, then what I'm hearing you say, correct me if I'm wrong, is, it was one decision at a time, but with all of the stuff. Like it's kind of like I hear other people say, and I say it myself too. It's like, yeah, I did it, but I did it scared. I did it
Right.
unknowing. I did
Right.
it uncertain.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's how I lived my whole 20s. I'm not gonna lie. Like everything was, I did it, but I did it scared. I did it, but did it with
Yeah.
anxiety. I did it. My 20s was probably that way
Okay.
the entire time.
Let me roll into the second question, but I don't want it to stop the story. So if there's more
Sure,
story to tell, then bring it into it, and then you can kind of
sure.
add this layer into it. As you look back at this comma that you were sitting on, what did that create for you?
I think it created courage because I really wasn't sure if I could move away. I wasn't sure if I could build my own life and do my own thing and leave my hometown. But once I did it, it gave me the courage to do it again. So I
Mm.
really feel like I was able to continue, the last 20 years building on that same courage that I achieved from that 6 month stint in Orlando, where I had the
Hmm.
courage to get through my fears, right? And get through my anxiety and get in my car and drive it to Orlando, the 10 hours to Orlando or 11 hours to Orlando, from home, find an apartment on my own, find a second job because it was like I couldn't afford to do it with one job, so then I found a second job, and so it was
Mm.
just the courage to do all the things to make it happen has really. I even reflect back to that sometimes and go, man, I'm so proud of myself, right? Like I
Mm.
that was the step that made. I think if I would have stayed home in my hometown, while I could have probably still had a great life, I'm not sure if I would have felt as courageous as I do now. I think
Mm.
that really kicked things off for me. After my 6 months in Disney, or in Orlando, I got a phone call from the casting company, and they said,
Okay.
"Hey, are you still looking for work? We are starting on a movie called Glory Road, and it was a Disney Jerry Bruckheimer movie about basketball."
Hmm.
And they said, we are going to need to hire a lot of extras and we need a casting assistant to work with us. Are you interested in doing that? And I was like, yes. This is what
Mm.
I went to school for. I know I'm passionate about it. I loved working on the last film. So I moved back to New Orleans and started working in the TV and film industry at that time. And when I say I fell in love with story making in college, it was to the next level when I got into really immersed in the TV and film world. I, when I was working on that film on Glory Road, there's just one moment I will never forget it. I was in the basketball stadium at LSU, and we're filming a scene. It's full of extras that I had helped. I mean, and this is a period piece. So I mean, everybody had to go through
Mm,
wardrobe. Everybody had to go through hair. We had hundreds and hundreds of people sitting in these stands. We the actors were there, the director was there, the producer was there. I think we were filming one of the final scenes of the movie, which was like an intense championship type game.
hmm
And I sat where I was sitting was kind of behind the director and the actors and the actors' chairs. And I thought to myself, I never want to forget this moment for the rest of my life. This is the coolest
mm,
thing ever. And I just thought I get to be a part of something that's going to make people laugh, or it's going to make people cry. It's going to make people happy. It's going to make people mad. I get to be a part of something that's going to evoke emotions. And that was so cool for me. That was super cool. Um, so I did. I worked in TV and film for many years after that.
I never want to forget. I think that's going to be one of the hashtags, in our social media posts for this episode and so forth. Just like those moments. So many people, not everybody, I'm sure, but many people have had one of those moments in their lives where it's like, oh my gosh, I
Yes.
never want to forget that. So what a
Yes,
great and
like you're on a
powerful,
vacation or you're on a
yeah,
something that you go, gosh,
a,
I've
a
like,
relationship, getting a job, or
yeah,
the
yes,
opportunity to speak or something, or trying a food. It could big or small,
anything,
it doesn't
right?
matter, right? And then the other thing I was going to say earlier, but I didn't want to interrupt your story. 6 months in Orlando. I mean, it sounds like the title to a memoir. I mean, it really does. It's awesome. But
Oh,
what I do want to acknowledge though is that clearly that was a milestone in your life, and what you have described to us is that you did something scared, you jumped in, you didn't know what it was going to be, but you kind of went all in. Let's see what happens. And it ended up being a big springboard, not just physically in terms of where do you go next, but kind of mentally and emotionally in terms of how you navigate the where you go next.
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Tell us
Um,
tell us about your next comma, and then I'm going to
okay,
shift into the third question. So,
okay. So I was working in TV and film at the for a few years in New Orleans, and at that point in New Orleans, it was booming industry, and there was a lot of films coming in, there were TV shows coming in, and that industry is very interesting because you work on a show or a film or whatever it is for a short period of time, and then you're looking for your next job, and you're looking for your next job, and you're while you're on a show or a film or whatever it is, you're asking your friends and buddies like, what are you working on next? Do they need this? Do they, it is, you're constantly looking for that next job. And it's one of those industries where the longer your resume the better, because you've worked on all these shows and all these movies and all these things. So I did that for multiple years. I was working, Wheel of Fortune had come to New Orleans and it was filming
mm,
an episode. And so it was again one of those things where it was like, hey, they need some production people for Wheel of Fortune. And I was, a friend called that worked in the industry, and they're like, hey, are you on something this week? And I was like, nope. All right, come work on Wheel of Fortune. And so, I mean, this was the lifestyle. And it was just great when you're 22, 23, 24 years old. I mean, you
mm-hmm,
jump from job to job, and it's really fun and exciting, and there's celebrities, and it's cool. And so I was on Wheel of Fortune, and I got a phone call from my parents that there was a big hurricane coming
mm,
and that we were going to need to evacuate the next day. And I was like, what do you mean we're evacuating the next day? I'm in the middle of working for Wheel of Fortune right now. Like I'm not
mm-hmm.
going anywhere. And they said, no, we you need to turn on the news. You need to look at what's going on. You need to pack your stuff. Like we need to figure this out. I will say maybe it wasn't the next day, but within a couple of days, they knew like, hey, we're gonna have to leave.
Right. And this,
Um,
just for our listeners, this is
yes,
Katrina that you're talking about,
Katrina. Yes,
Hurricane Katrina. Yeah.
this is Hurricane Katrina.
hmm
So and at that point, I get off the phone with them, and within hours, it's a buzz all over the set, right? Everybody's talking about it. All these people are here from California working on Wheel of Fortune, so they're trying to figure out how to get them back to
hmm
back home and get on planes and get everything wrapped up. We're all, with our families and trying to figure out what's going on. So we did end up evacuating a couple of days later. My family, we went up to Arkansas. When it was my parents. We had a caravan of cousins and aunts and uncles and pets and dogs and all these things. And so we went up to Arkansas for the evacuation and spent the next 24 hours glued to TV screens as we
Mm.
watched the city just deconstruct, just kind of, and it was heartbreaking. And I had family who had stayed behind. So I had an aunt with me, and her husband, my uncle, had decided he didn't want to leave. He wanted to stay with the house. He wanted to stay behind. We couldn't reach him. So it was just such a stressful, crazy, emotional
Hmm.
time period. The other piece of that you don't even expect to ever, you don't think you're going to be a part of the opposite side of needing the help. And that was also very eye-opening for me at 23, 24 years old, where I was making good money. I had never really thought about losing everything I have. Like
Mm.
it was a that we ended up going to a Red Cross shelter in Arkansas that they had opened up for people and then from the New Orleans area. And they had hot meals for us. They had I had gone with 3 days worth of clothes. Like I really did not
Hmm.
think that it was going to be what it was. So I had a backpack with three days worth of clothes. I didn't have a lot of stuff. So they gave us gift cards to J.C. Penney, and so we could get like, some more underwear and things that you need, like some
Hmm.
necessities. And it was very humbling and interesting to be on the opposite end of that and to feel so you feel lost, you feel sad, you feel grief, you feel like that what's next is back. So like,
Hmm.
thinking back at like that college graduation hat where I was like, what's next? What's next? And I felt like I started to figure it out. And then I'm right back into like, what's next? Like, what am I gonna do? Um, and so I got a phone call while I was there in Arkansas from someone I worked on the TV show Trading Spouses, where the moms switch roles and switch places. And from
Hmm.
somebody that had worked on that show with me, and she lived in Los Angeles, and she called me and said, "Are you okay? Where are you? What are you doing?" And I explained the situation, and she said, "Come to LA. Just move to LA. Just come here, and you can figure it out." And I got off the phone with her. I remember pacing the parking lot of the hotel we were in, and this is like a true comma moment in my life, right? This is
Hmm.
where my life direction is going to go, could go in so many different ways. The city is torn apart. I'm not going to have, my hometown is torn apart. I'm not going to have work. I'm not going to have anything. I don't have children. I don't have a relationship. There's nothing holding me back. And I made the decision to go from Arkansas to Los Angeles and never go home again. And
Mm.
I went back up to the hotel room and told my parents, I'm moving to LA. Um, I'm not going home. And so they're dealing with, but I was like, I didn't own a home at the time yet. I was renting an apartment. I didn't have anything holding me back. And so again, made one decision that led to multiple decisions and multiple
Hmm.
decisions and multiple decisions. Um, but my mom and I got in the car from Arkansas. We drove 3 days to LA. She stayed a night with me there. And she said, I have to go home. Like, I have to go back to your dad. I have to get back to our home. We have to start building this back again. We have to start. And I know that probably could sound a little selfish that I didn't go back with my family and help with all of those pieces, but
Mm.
they were very supportive and said, what are you gonna do? What do you like? Go live
Yeah.
your life. Like, go do it. But yeah, I left Arkansas with 3 days worth of clothes and a J.C. Penney gift card and
Hmm.
said, I'm moving to Los Angeles.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like there's a couple of things there. One on the leaving, I'm sure your family, I mean, that's the thing about like you said, being 23, 24. I mean, that is when you're kind of meant to and supposed to be able to go and stretch if you
Yeah,
choose. Everything is always if we
right.
choose, right? But that's I it sounds like your family saw the opportunity in this for you. And and
Yes.
and the other thing you're highlighting is that it can be so profound and powerful when you go through the hard things and you lose everything, whether that's your physical, place, home, what have you, lose relationships. That's not what you're describing here, but it's similar. When you literally are kind of like at a point where you don't have anything, and that can feel like the worst place to be, and yet what you're describing is it turned out to be completely freeing, right? Like
Yes,
it
it
just
was.
then there's no
life
reason
changing.
not to just go
Hmm.
someplace. So, what a huge
Absolutely.
leap and a huge, as you said, opportunity to once again, what's next? And let's make a decision. Let's go.
Let's make a decision. And it's interesting too, I think that how a comma can come up in your life so quickly and unexpected sometimes, right? Like
Mm,
I was working and living my life and I was looking for the next job or role, with what I was going to do after Wheel of Fortune. And I probably had weekend plans with friends. I just had no idea that my life would take such a huge turn so quickly.
mm,
And then I got that phone call and my life was never the same. So
hmm.
it is. It is interesting how sometimes those comments just catch you by
Yeah.
surprise.
Well, and for you specifically, right? We can talk about generally and anecdotally for other people, but what I'm hearing you describe is a life of experiences. I mean, granted, you've shared three primary commas with us, but
Hmm.
a life of experiences with commas and experiencing this feeling of being stuck or uncertain or unsure, and then what do you do with it? Without knowing the future or without being certain or confident, being able to say, well, let's make a decision. That's that's a good time to transition into the third question here. And I'm sure you probably
Yes.
have many more stories you could tell us. But question three is when you look back at these commas that you've been describing, what have you learned about yourself? Or what are you learning about yourself?
I think we're all constantly learning about ourselves. But I would say I learned at that point, I learned how to trust my gut, right? So there's definitely that aspect of you can get advice from other people, you can lean on friends and family, but sometimes you really just kind of have to trust your gut and do what makes
Mm,
sense for you. Um, it's interesting. I really prioritized myself at that point, which, like I said, a minute ago, kind of sounds a little selfish given like all what my family and everybody was going through. And I had to, make some um, choices that were, most beneficial to me at the time.
mhm,
So I think I learned about myself learned the ability to prioritize where and when necessary, which I think is something that I'm relearning right now in my life. In my 20s, it was easy to prioritize myself because it was just me. And then, life happens and get married and
mhm.
kids and all the things that happen. And so now I'm relearning that, channeling my inner 25-year-old to prioritize myself again, which is a work in progress.
I'm curious, and I want to give you an opportunity to say more about that because you've said a couple of times, it felt selfish, and I didn't press or ask
Sure, sure.
a drill down question. But here's what I believe I'm seeing in your story is on the one hand, as you very much said directly, like trust my gut and prioritize myself and my needs. And then this conflict of is that selfish? And now you said, I'm kind of in this place again. What's the significance of that for you? Is it because it sounds like following your gut has served you really well throughout your life? How does following your maybe here's the question, and answer it however you choose to, or answer it differently if you want to. How is that, or what challenges does that create for you?
I am also a recovering people pleaser. So I think
Mm.
that is where my struggle happens. So
Okay.
yeah, so I think some pieces are coming together for you. So
I mean, you could have stopped right there. Please continue, though.
yes, yes. So definitely I've always had that aspect about me where while I may know there may be something I want to do, I'm going to put somebody else and their needs first, or I'm going to make a point to maybe hold back some of my feelings and opinions and thoughts because I want to make sure I'm kind of saying things that would, please someone else. And so that's not an aspect that I necessarily love about myself because I do think while
Mm.
there's it's nice to please people, there's also, the aspect of that where you kind of lose yourself into just doing for others and pleasing others and saying,
Mm,
you lose your own opinion sometimes or your own feelings and thoughts and your own, if you disagree with something, and sometimes you hold it in and hold it to yourself because so I've always had a little bit of that aspect. So I think that's why I was selfish, like why I felt selfish because
hmm
I wasn't some actually, the right thing to do for the other people in my life. And so there was that aspect. But even now, after years of, I ultimately got married, had kids, and you kind of lose yourself again in that people pleasing because everybody always needs you for something.
mm,
And it's just any adult, right? Like it's, the kids need to, are up all night, or the kids need to be taken somewhere, or the dog is, made a mess and whatever it is, right? You're constantly being pulled in a million different directions, with all your relationships. And when you have that people pleasing aspect, all of that comes first. And so
mm,
now I'm coming to a place where I'm trying to balance that aspect of my personality with also prioritizing, myself, and some of my own needs, which I think makes me, hopefully, actually makes me a better mom and a better wife and a better friend because I
hmm
am giving myself that time and that respect to, either voice my opinion or say no to something, right? Like it's just
Yeah. If I can interrupt for just a moment, I think this might be a
absolutely.
powerful opportunity to reflect and then, correct me or jump in and build on this. So it's so interesting, and I'll self-reference just a little bit because I too have the whole people pleasing thing. But here's what I see and what you said. So this is what I believe I'm seeing is your gut and your instinct tells you what to do to take care of your needs, right? Your guilt says no, or
Mhm.
you should feel bad about it because you're supposed to take care of other people's needs. And then ultimately, your actions, I suspect your actions pan out in terms of what really works best for you and your life. And yet it's interesting. This is the part, well, all of it reflect on, but it's interesting, whether it's my own experience, whether it's the experience you're describing today, or so many other stories I've had with people who have these people pleasing tendencies. It's so interesting because I believe when you take care of your own needs, you're never taking anything away from someone else. Like the
Right.
distinction between taking care of yourself versus true selfishness is when what you do may leave that person feeling a certain way, but ultimately you've never taken anything away from them. Their own thoughts, beliefs, opinions, perceptions are their own, right? Or often they don't even have it to begin
Right.
with. It's a
Right.
construct we made up, right? Um,
Right.
yeah, maybe I'll just stop there, and let me put that on the table. Push it over to you. You do what you want with that. But I think what I wanted to say is, it seems like your instinct always knows what you need to take care of yourself, regardless of other people, and it truly is about just you and your needs.
You said that way more eloquently than I did. But yes, that was
Mm,
that was what I was sharing. It's almost like a tug of war, right? So like sometimes that focus on yourself and your needs and what your gut's telling you, and that other pull to how is that going to affect others, or what are they going to think, or you know, is it okay, or am I'm really bad at it when it comes to things like, we live in a beautiful, wonderful cul-de-sac that is like a family, and I am so grateful of the families
mm,
around me. But I am the one who's going, hey, are we gonna do a Christmas party? Hey, are we gonna get together for 4th of July? Hey, are we gonna get together for, trick-or-treating and Halloween? It's all, if they're listening, they're probably shaking their head yes, but it's always me.
yeah.
And so in the back of my head, while I know when it comes down to it, we are going to have a great time. Everybody's going to be so happy we did it. We're all going to come together as a neighbors and cul-de-sac and make it work. And um, in the back of my head, I'm going, am I being annoying? Am I aggravating them? Am I driving them crazy? Do they
Mm,
even want to do this? Like, there's a little part of me that eats at me going, we've lived here for years. We all love each other. We all do this. Everybody is on board. But because it's always me being the initiator, I start to second guess if I am
mm.
driving people crazy. And if they're like, oh my gosh, here's Kate again. Like she's, uh,
Well, and
so
there's a couple of directions I was curious about, but I'll reflect instead. Like, but that seems to be consistent with the stories that you've told us, right? Is like
right,
when in doubt, when uncertain, whether it's these big things that you've described or even these little kind of day
little,
to
right,
day kinds of things. At some point, I'm going to make a decision, and I'm going to make a decision and take an action.
right, right. Yep. And that's truly how I live my life. You know, I've had that
Okay.
struggle and but I listen to my gut and I think I learned that at a young age, starting to listen to my gut and making decisions and knowing that or learning along the way that those decisions can change and it doesn't
Mm,
have to be permanent. So that has kind of guided me throughout
yeah.
the
Okay.
journey.
I think I was making a note about something that I wanted to ask later, but the fourth question, this is a great opportunity to jump into that because I think you've already shared a little bit about, you've already answered this question a little bit. So, but I'll ask it. What has changed for you as a result of sitting on these commas?
I think I will say, sorry, I really want to give a good answer for this one.
Well, you take all the time
uh,
you need to reflect on that.
I think I do think I am more confident in
Mm,
in that following my gut. And so communicating with the neighbors aside, when it comes to some of the kind of bigger things in life and when I sit on these commas and then I get to the other side of them and I make a decision that leads me to make another decision that leads me to make another one where I can reflect back on it. I trust my decision making and I trust
hmm
myself and I do feel more confident and I can may have some strong direction and be okay.
hmm
I recently, in the last year and a half, left a career and a job that I had had for almost 11 years, and that was a huge, huge comma in my life. And it took a lot of, I was sat on that comma for a while. I was
hmm
considering what to do for probably a solid year and a half before I actually made the decision to leave the company. But when I did, I was confident that I had put the time in to really reflect and think about, have the conversations with my family and how that would affect us as a family, and ultimately do what was right for me
hmm
um, at the same time. And so I could truly trust my gut, knowing, kind of one, my history of
hmm
the way I've handled situations and my kind of my resilience a little bit. And then
Yeah.
two, just,
I was going to say I think that pans out in the stories that you shared because perhaps, and you tell me, the distinction is the confidence is in the decision that you make and the choice that you make, and that might be somewhat different than how are people going to feel about it or how are people going to react about it. Because in most of your stories, I bet if I went back through the notes and or through our recording, I could find the thread through every one of the stories. But I think about when you left Arkansas to go to LA, you knew you were going, but of course you worried about what people were thinking, right? The
yes, right,
cul-de-sac, we're doing this thing, but I worry about what people are thinking. The job, I'm going to spend some time thinking about what people are going to think, but I'm still going to do the thing. So I'm
right.
wondering if those things can be decoupled, you know?
Yeah, I think so. And I'm not going to say every decision I've ever made has gone the right, gone well. Sometimes you get on a comma and you make a decision and you go, oh gosh, I need to,
Mm-hmm.
that maybe wasn't the best idea. But that's okay. It's okay, you know?
And you learn.
You learn. Yeah.
Kate, let me ask the last question. What does
Okay.
getting off the comma look like for you?
Well, I'm on a comma right now.
Mm,
But I think that getting off the commas looks like getting back on it at another time and place. So I really think that we live in a constant state of commas, and there are moments, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, but there are moments that you're on the comma for a long time. There are moments when you're on the comma for just a minute, and we're we are going to constantly move from comma to comma and hopefully learn to trust our gut and listen to our heart and get the guidance we need to move on until the next comma pops up.
hmm I appreciate that answer, and many guests have done that as well. Like you have these specific stories and specific points in your life that represent these common moments, and I hear you looking back and being very reflective over and what did they have in common and what did I learn from them. And so it sounds like what you're saying is recognizing that there will always be commas, and so then each one is its own little kind of story, but what is it that I do regardless of the
Right.
story or the
Right.
situation?
I think you wake up in the morning and you get out of bed and
Mm,
you take one step forward or you make your coffee or, whatever your routine is and continue to, live one each day at a time and looking at each day and each birthday as a badge of honor of, what you've been through and what you've
hmm.
got ahead of you. I think that is how you get through the comma, until the next one.
So, given that, and because of timing, I'm not going to ask you for details about the comma that you're sitting on right now. But then, given everything that you've just shared, I guess the question is, what do you think you will do?
Yeah. I'm doing it day to day, but I think
Hmm.
so I left the company a year and a half ago. I started doing, it was a large consulting firm. And so I started doing some freelance consulting work with me by myself and then also with another smaller family-owned company. I wrote a book that's actually was released in November. So I'm doing it, but I don't know if I truly feel off the comma from that. I mean,
Mm,
leaving a company that you were with for 11 years kind of identifies you a little bit, and you become that work. Sometimes you become it define sometimes that your professional work starts to define you a little bit.
hmm.
I also got really strong in my skill set around the work I was doing there. And so that also defined me. I did strategic planning and goal management, which is
Hmm.
excellent timing for January
Right.
content. But I I really loved that work and got really strong and solid. And it was a very rewarding to help people with strategy and goals and things that I found
Hmm.
I was passionate about and good at. So then I lost that identity a little bit when I left. And so
Hmm.
figuring out this new identity, I think, is where I'm at on the comma. What is my
Yeah.
new identity? And so while I'm getting up every morning, I'm, working for the smaller family-owned company. I'm working on my, writing another book and writing, working on um, continuing to market the book that's out right now. I am just doing day to day, living day to day, and doing all of these things that are bringing me happiness and bringing me joy and keeping me excited and energized and all of those things. But
Hmm.
to say like I've landed and I've created this identity, this new identity out of, the old one, I don't know if I'm there yet. I mean,
Mm.
when you go to my website, there's like pages about consulting, there's pages about this Christmas book. I mean, it is just like, who is this girl and what is she doing? So I don't feel like I've got a solid, strong identity, and maybe I won't. Maybe I'll continue to lean into the things that I'm passionate about, whether they work well together or they're,
Mm.
I do it separately and live these separate lives. But
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to figure out now.
It sounds like you're in your process, just like you
Yes.
described before. And if you're able to say, I don't know yet, then maybe that means that it's not time yet. You're not there yet. Like you said before, I'll know when I look back and see what
Yeah.
I've done. But it sounds like you're doing all the things.
Well, maybe we do this again at the end of 2026 and I can catch you up.
Maybe,
Maybe
yeah.
I'll be there. Who knows?
Well, on that note, though, so as we start to wrap things up, for people who do want to follow your journey and see where you go next and maybe connect with you or learn a little bit more about your experiences, I'll put all the links in the show notes, of course. Where can people contact you? Where can people find you?
Sure. So I kind of have a new social media presence because of this book that I put out. It is a Christmas book. So it's if you find me on social media, you're going to see a lot of Christmas things out there. It's
Mm,
very Christmas focused. However, my website is kate-hendrickson.com. And while it does have Christmas and book content, it also has ways to contact me, ways to, work with me on a goal, leadership, strategy perspective. Podcast, if I love doing podcasts because I think talking to people and telling stories is just how we grow as a yeah, as humanity, as humans, right? Like
Hmm.
we learn and grow from each other and we started this whole thing with me saying I'm relationship driven, and I think that's why I
Hmm.
love podcasting and meeting people and doing this. So if you want to do a recording or a podcast together, you can find me there. So, and then if you're interested in a Christmas book in January, go for it. So you'll
Okay.
find all of that on my website. It is a little bit of a mess. It's not a mess. It's very neatly organized, but there's just a lot of all my lanes and avenues are there. So you can find me
Hmm.
kate-hendrickson.com.
Well, consistent with someone who likes, or someone who is an experimenter, right? So
Yes.
lots of things. Kate, the last thing that we do it on every episode, is this thing that I call acknowledgments. And so, um, as it relates to this episode specifically, or to this podcast specifically, if what we're doing here is about honoring people's stories, lifting up voices, then your story wouldn't be complete today if we didn't give you the opportunity to also lift up others. So it's your opportunity to boost, give a voice to, lift up or promote others, whether that be causes, organizations, other creators, or just important people in your life who matter. So who would you like to acknowledge today?
Sure. So I definitely want to acknowledge the Red Cross. We talked about this, when we talked about my Hurricane Katrina story and being on the other side of it and really seeing how much they help people when those commas all of a sudden come up, whether it's, natural disaster or something else that they're dealing with. To have that resource in our country is extremely important. So I'm a huge supporter of the Red Cross because of my experience and love that they continue to help people when they're in need.
Hmm.
So that's definitely one for me. I would also say just my support system. So my husband, my kids, my parents, my in-laws, my, friends. I have the most incredible support system around me, who every time I come to a comma, they're here for what I need. Whether it's I'm just gonna roll with it and I know she's got it, but I've got her back and I'm supporting her, or hey, I need an ear that can just let me just listen to me, or I truly need some advice, or I need a break from life for a minute and everybody like just giving me the space I need sometimes to figure some things out. So I think having that wonderful support system is so important. And
Mm.
I think finding it, if you don't naturally have it, finding that support system that
Mm.
you can lean on can be a game changer. So that's my kind of other acknowledgement is set my supportive family and friends around me.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, there's so much that you've shared with us today. I know there's probably plenty more stories you could share. Unfortunately, all podcasts must come to an end. So, thank you again for sharing all of your kind of comma experiences with us today. And certainly, you and I'll look forward to following your journey and seeing where you go next. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend ahead.
You too, Paul. This was great. Thank you.
What an honor it is for me to hear and share these powerful stories. I hope you feel the same way. Think about what you learned from this conversation. I encourage you to write it down in some form of journaling or reflection, because surprises can reveal themselves to you when you write your thoughts down. If you were moved by today's conversation, pass it along to someone you care about. And if you do discover something you'd like to unpack further, book a call with me and let's talk about it. My links are in the show notes. Be sure to like this episode and follow the podcast here on this platform and all social media at Off the Comma. Feel free to interact and comment. Thank you for listening to this episode of Off the Comma. As always, keep noticing and keep listening.